some reputable experts estimate that it will be at least 10 years before Communist China could become a full-fledged nuclear power. Against that background, could you expand a little bit your answer to a previous question on just how we assess the power and the threat of Communist China today?
Well, we assess its power as 700 million people, increasing at 14 to 15 million a year, surrounded by countries which are, in every case but one, much smaller, which are faced with very difficult geographic and social problems, which do not have a strong national history, so that we find a great powerful force in China, organized and directed by the government along Stalinist lines, surrounded by weaker countries. So this we regard as a menacing situation. In addition, as I said, that government is not only Stalinist in its internal actions, but also has called for war, international war, in order to advance the final success of the communist cause. We regard that as a menacing factor. And then you introduce into that mix nuclear weapons. And as you say, it may take some years, maybe a decade, before they become a full-fledged nuclear power. But we're going to be around in the 1970s, and we would like to take some steps now which would lessen that prospect that a future president might have to deal with. I would regard that combination, if it's still in existence in the 1970s, of weak countries around it, 700 million people, a Stalinist internal regime, Stalinist government and nuclear powers, and a government determined on war as a means of bringing about its ultimate success, as potentially a more dangerous situation than any we faced since the end of the Second War, because the Russians pursued, in most cases, their ambitions with some caution. And even in the case of the most overt aggression, which was the North Korean invasion of South Korea, other forces were used and not the Russians. So what we are anxious to do, and one of the reasons why we have moved into the limited test ban, even though we recognize its limitations, is because we don't want to find the world in as great a danger as it could be in the 1970s, for the reasons I've described.
President.